Well, hey everybody, I'm Curtis Chapman, and to even say these words, let me tell you my ink story, I know is going to make some people's eyes start to twitch and go, seriously? Curtis Chapman has an ink story, as in tattoo kind of ink. And I would agree that that was a surprise even to myself. Started with my wife, which is a whole nother story. You can actually read about it in her book, Choosing to See, where she tells the story of her first tattoo, growing up with a dad who had ink on his arm, and she always thought it was so cool. It freaked me out when she got this little tiny rose on her ankle, 2 roses representing her and myself. It should have just been a very sweet thing, but me being all up in my head and recovering legalist and all the stuff that goes along with that, I was like, I can't believe you would want to do that. But fast forward a few years from that, I end up having an amazing opportunity to do a tour that I never could have imagined. I had read a story called Beyond the Gates of Splendor, and it was a story of 5 missionaries, some of you know, back in the 50s, who went to the jungles of Ecuador. Jim Elliot is probably the most famously known one, particularly because it was his wife, Elizabeth Elliot, that wrote the story. The story of these missionaries who went to try to reach an unreached tribe deep in the jungle. The tribe was called the Waodani. And this tribe, misunderstanding the intention, not knowing why these men were coming, thinking they were coming to attack them, they attacked and killed these 5 missionaries. Eventually, many of these tribes people would become followers of Jesus. I had the opportunity to go spend time with this tribe in the jungle of Ecuador. So I asked Min Kai, who was one of those men from the tribe who actually attacked and killed those missionaries, if he would come on tour with me, along with Steve Saint, the son of Nate Saint, the pilot, who grew up calling this man, Min Kai, his grandfather, even though he was the man who killed his father. They came on tour for about 65 concerts on my tour called Live Out Loud several years ago. They came in every night. They would come out on stage. Steve would come out and tell his story, and then he would introduce Min Kai, who would walk out in with his big earplugs in his ears, and in his own native language. He didn't speak English, and he would speak in his native tongue, and Steve would translate to tell the story of how God transformed his heart. And so I was just so blown away with this story and the fact that I got to share it with people. The last night of the tour, both these guys invited us to their hotel room before the last concert and said, we have something we want to do for you. And so we went to the hotel room. Min Kai, this man who had killed missionaries with his bare hands, who had come to bring him the hope of the gospel, walked out with a towel wrapped around him and a water basin and knelt down and proceeded to wash the feet of myself and all the guys in my band. Obviously, we were just blubbering, crying, and it was one of the most profound moments of the power of the gospel, of the love of God and forgiveness that I'd ever experienced. And I'm looking down, here's the very hands that killed missionaries, bringing the message of peace to him, now washing my feet. So the next day, I thought, how do I never forget this? I went the next day and I thought, I'm gonna go get a tattoo on my foot as close to the spot where my feet were washed, just whenever I'm putting my socks on, thinking about the impact of this story. And so I chose the symbol that the Waodani tribe, if you go to the jungle to spend time with them, they kind of initiate you into the tribe with this marking that they put on your arm. And it's a zigzag kind of marking with little dots in between. And that's kind of their tribe marking. And then I had come up with this idea of creating a little symbol for God follower. I wrote a song called God Follower. I had created this little G with an F inside of it, kind of the follower inside of God, and then this little marking. And I kind of created this design, and I took it to a tattoo artist and said, can you put this as small as possible on my ankle? I want to know it's there, not trying to make a statement to anybody else. I just want to know that it's there. And so I did, and I got that, thinking, well, that's my ink story. That'll be the extent of it, until a few years later, thinking that would be, my one little marking on the inside of my ankle. Years went by. A lot of people know that we have 6 children, Mary Beth and me, my wife of 38 years. We have 6 kids, 3 natural and 3 supernatural, we like to say. They fly around with little capes and whatnot. 3 born to us and 3 that came to us by the miracle of adoption. Shoei, Shohana, Stevie Joy, and Maria. A lot of you know the story of Maria when she was 5 years old, just a few days after her 5th birthday. Very, very unthinkable tragedy happened to our family at our home, and Maria passed away and went to be with Jesus at 5 years old. Needless to say, at that point, life stopped as we knew it. We went and stayed with some friends and didn't know if we would ever come back to our home, to our house. The accident that took her life happened at our home, in our driveway, so we were just very unsure what, at that point, how we even take the next steps and the next breaths. But God sustained us and gave us the next breath and the next breath. We came home after a few days to visit our home and grab some clothes for a memorial service and a service remembering Maria's life. And as I was walking through the kitchen, I noticed a piece of paper laying on the little art table where Maria and her sister Stevie Joy would spend hours and hours every day because Maria loved to draw, she loved to color, she loved markers and drawing pictures with markers, she loved glue and scissors, she'd cut out things and glue all these layers together. She's very crafty. So I saw a piece of paper that had Maria's, I call it her signature flower. For some reason in preschool, she had just graduated from preschool a few days before she went to be with Jesus, getting ready for kindergarten. And she had learned to write her name, Maria, and she had learned how to write I love mom and I love dad. She knew mom and dad, she knew I love, and she knew her name. Those were the only words at that point and only letters she knew as far as we knew. But she loved to draw this flower. And it was a 6-petal flower, and she would color all the petals different colors. And had a little stem and leaves. And I saw a picture that she had drawn the morning of the day that she went to be with Jesus. And obviously it, took my breath away, and I stopped in my tracks and I went over and I picked the picture up. And of course, through my tears, I looked at this picture and it only had 1 petal colored in, which was blue, which was her favorite color. She was very passionate about the color blue. She would tell you, it's my favorite color. Blue is my favorite color, even if you didn't ask her. And that was the only petal that got colored in. And the rest were still just blank, just the outlines. And I noticed something bleeding through the back of the paper that she had written in marker on the back. So I turned it over, and there was a butterfly that she had drawn a picture of. And then she had written a word that we had never seen before. It was the word see, letters S-E-E. And at that moment, prayer I'd been praying just in my desperation was, God, I trust you. I don't know what that even means right now because I don't know how we're going to survive this as a family. I don't know how my heart's going to survive this, but I'm just asking you to let us see something that puts all these things that we're believing by faith into some kind of a tangible expression. God, I know I'm not even maybe supposed to ask for that, but I'm desperate. I'm asking for something that would just help me really see in a physical, tangible way, something that confirms everything that I'm holding on to by faith. When I saw that word see, a word that I showed it to my wife and she immediately said, I've never seen Maria write that word. Why did she know the word see? Why would she write that word? For us, for me and for my family, it felt literally like God had just given her that word to write in her own hand to say, Mom and Dad, family, you're going to have a really hard time seeing this right now through your tears and through the pain and through all that you're walking through. But I want to give you this message to keep seeing by faith what you're going to see, what I'm seeing right now with my eyes. Heaven, it's real, it's all true. All the things that you sing about, all the things that we believe, that's what that word meant to me. And that's what that flower meant, and that little butterfly, which obviously represents new life. What was interesting about the flower would be that as Mary Beth was explaining it to someone, she drew it and she said, I noticed that I've never seen this before, but there are 6 petals, and only one of them is colored in, and I thought Maria didn't get the flower finished. And maybe she didn't. We won't know till heaven. But what it said to Mary Beth was all the other petals were still waiting to get filled in. They were still waiting to get their color. And only one of them was complete, was colored, and that was blue. That was Maria's petal. And so, again, a message for us was just, there is a whole lot in this picture and this flower and this word that helps us hold on to the promises of God and helps us have something that we're believing by faith that God gave us just a little glimpse. We felt like through the veil, into eternity. So we all talked about it and said, this is something that for a guy who probably wouldn't necessarily sign up to go get, more ink on his body, I said, I don't ever want to forget this. I don't ever want to forget this flower, this picture. I'm never going to forget it, obviously, but I want to have it marked somewhere. I'm going to get that tattooed somewhere on my arm. And then all of us in the family had some different variation of that. Mary Beth has a little bitty tattoo on the inside of her wrist. Psalm 34:8, taste and see the Lord is good. That's a verse that became our anchor, our lifeline through this journey that we are still on. But so what I did was get this, which is exactly Maria's flower and her handwriting of the word see. So I got that tattooed on my arm just to help me continue to remember, even on the days when it is the bitter is a lot more than the sweet, to keep remembering to taste and see the goodness of the Lord right here in the land of the living, while we're still waiting for that day when we're finally going to see it fully and completely, that all the broken things have been made whole again.